I am the Director of Operations at WellSteps. I thank you for joining us today and welcome you to our webinar entitled Outcomes-Based Wellness Programs Made Simple. Before we get started, here are just a few tips to help you get the most out of today's webinar. The entire presentation is being recorded and will be available after the presentation at wellsteps.com, and it will be available on the webinars page. The slides will also be available on the same page. There are close to 1,000 participants today, so all phones have been muted, and you will not be allowed to speak, but you can participate at any time by typing in questions or comments. To do so, simply click on the Question and Answers link at the bottom of your GoToWebinar control panel. I will be monitoring this section during the webinar, and we will answer as many questions as possible. If we don't get to your questions, please feel free to email me at ryan@wellsteps.com, and I will respond to them personally. The presentation today will last for approximately 50 minutes and will include a 10-minute question and answer period at the end. It is now my pleasure to introduce today's presenter, Dr. Steve Aldana. Dr. Aldana is the CEO of WellSteps as well as a principal in the Lifestyle Research Group. Steve has presented and consulted all over the globe and published numerous scientific publications and several books on health behaviors in various populations. It's now my pleasure to turn the time over to Dr. Aldana.
Thanks, Ryan. But wait, everybody wants to know where Dr. Adams is. Well, it just so happens that Dr. Adams is sick today. He has got severe laryngitis. He's actually on the phone with us today, and if he has the ability to speak with any questions we might have of it, he was communicating with me with a whiteboard and video this morning, so he's pretty much out. So instead of Dr. Adams, you have me. Now I'm not going to make any excuses. Stuff happens, but we've got 1,300 people who registered and probed around on this webinar. 1,000 of you actually have actually registered. As I've always said before, we're honored to have you here. I wish that Dr. Adams and I and Ryan and all of us here at WellSteps, I wish we all had all the solutions to all the problems. We don't have all the answers. I'm going to be the first one to admit that. But what we do have is about 65 to 70 years of experience. Dr. Adams and I have been doing this our whole lives, and we've got clients in multiple countries and in every state in the union. And we have every client is a little bit different. Everybody wants a little bit different flair and flavor. And what we've done is we've kind of sorted through all of the good, the bad, and the ugly to really come up with a good synopsis of what we would consider the best in the business outcomes plans. And we try to make it simple. So I'm admitting we don't have all the answers, but I will say that this is the best that we have right now. And it's based on an awful lot of experience and information I think and I hope you'll find helpful. So one last warning. We got 1,000 people on the webinar, and I do know that we push the GoToWebinar programming to its absolute limits. So you might have some choppy screens, you might have some drags and some delays. Any questions, again, feel free to just send a chat on your chat bar on the far right bottom, and Ryan will respond to those and Troy will be there. I'm just going to pre-warn you, we have had some issues with GoToWebinar with large groups like this before. So that said, let's get started. Dr. Aldana, first question everybody wants to know is, where can I find the slides? Okay, if you go to wellsteps.com, just click on the free webinars link. These slides, plus all of the materials we're going to hand out today, are located on this page. And I encourage you to go there and download it, because there's some of the most valuable tools we've created yet available on this page. In an hour or two after the webinar, the actual video itself will be posted if you want to pass it along or help other people see it. So I encourage you, we spend a lot of time and effort to help you do wellness better. Use the resources that are available. So what are we going to do today? Our objectives. We've got 3 things we want to accomplish. First off, we want to learn which strategies and outcomes we ought to use to do outcome-based programs. What practices may damage employee morale, how can we avoid those? And what exactly are the tools that we need for a really good outcomes-based program? So to get started, we first want to identify why are we here and what's the problem? Well, the problem is really simple. On an annual basis, the percentage of payroll that employers are paying for healthcare costs for employees is demonstrated here. So if you take all of the payroll that every single company makes, right now we're just about 17.5% of total payroll goes to pay for employee health care. The cost, as you all know, keeps going up, and for lack of any other solutions from the federal or state government that are meaningful to control costs, employers are taking matters into their own hands, and we are beginning to treat our health insurance just like we do our car insurance and our life insurance. We are beginning to risk rate our premiums. You get in a car wreck, your health insurance or your car insurance goes up. If you have elevated health risks, your life insurance premiums go up. Healthcare is the one area where we don't do that. And so to control cost, at least in an effort to stem the gradual trend, we're starting to risk rate and we're starting to alter who's paying how much for healthcare, rewarding those who are doing good things and in essence punishing those who don't. Just exactly like we do with car insurance and health insurance and life insurance. So what exactly is an outcome-based program? What are we talking about? Here is a source of a lot of the confusion. And I've just listed a couple of things that we hear and people talk about that we are considering health outcomes-based programs. We call it an incentive program. And that may not be outcomes-based, but people use the term incentive program. They use the term benefits-based incentive design to mean the same thing. They use wellness rewards plans, and I've heard all of these terms. And of course, my favorite, employee health and wellness incentive and motivation plan for the enhancement of health and quality of life. And we've seen everything in between them all. So what we're really talking about are risk-rated or health risk appraisal rated or program participation-based incentives that apply across the board to employees that typically have some type of large financial or meaningful financial incentive attached to the end. The outcome. What's the outcome of your health? Is your health better? Is your risk lower? What's the actual outcome of? Because that's what's really going to take it. We look at the design. This is it. Costs and bad outcomes are what happens when a lot of our employees have chronic disease. A lot of our employees have chronic disease because they have elevated health risks. And these elevated health risks are directly caused by unhealthy behaviors. So when we're talking about outcomes-based programs, we're talking about programs that have fewer high cost and bad outcomes. If we look at this diagram a little bit closer, the issue is right there. This is the root problem of all of this. It's unhealthy behaviors. It's the catalyst that starts this entire process along. Behaviors drive elevated risk like cholesterol and blood pressure. I know some of you are probably saying, but wait, I have a family history of heart disease and we all have high blood cholesterol. It may be that it's genetic and unrelated to your family's health behaviors. Most likely it is not. In fact, it's very rare to have a genetic cause of an elevated health risk. More than likely, it's because you and your family members share exactly the same behaviors and the same traditions, culture, family environment. Behavior starts this process off. So we're going to be focusing on behavior and how they're tied into this and how they can be part of this outcomes tracking. But if we look at the trends in this whole outcome business, we see some dramatic changes going on. From just 2009 to 2012, we're getting a dramatic increase in the number of work sites that are providing incentive and rewards for good outcomes. We're also seeing a comparable increase in the number of companies doing penalties, punishing people, carrots versus sticks, elevated premiums versus lower premiums for those who do or do not participate in healthy behaviors and have healthy risks. So the reason I think we had 1,300 people want to click and learn more about this webinar is demonstrated by this slide right here. There's a dramatic increase in interest in these programs. And quite frankly, we've seen it for a while, but it is the future. Not only have we seen increased interest in these programs, but look what's happened with current incentive programs. If you look across time from 2009 to 2012, 2009 is in blue, 2012 is in red. It's the percentage of companies that offer incentives for health risk appraisals. Okay, they've kind of gone up a little bit more because there's more incentives. Now we're doing biometric screening or health screenings, and now almost 64% of large employers are offering some type of incentive based on risk. But the part that pleases me the most in all of this, because it tells me that the message that we have been promoting, the papers we have been writing, the speaking we've been doing, it's starting to settle in. Campaigns. If it's really about behavior change, then what we want to do is encourage people to participate in those activities, campaigns, that will result in improved behaviors. So now we have over 50% of employers who are saying, we will provide you with an outcome, but in order to earn, an incentive. But in order to earn that incentive, you've got to participate in the programming, the campaigns. That's a shift that's going to continue. And I'll explain more as to why that shift is changing, because this has ramifications for our discussion today. Lastly, some of the trends, multiple activities required to qualify. That's up 94%. Penalties for not completing, up 121%. Penalties and rewards for screening values, 175% increase over 2011. This is, by the way, a paper that came out just literally a few months ago. HRA screening plus high-value option. For a high-value option, that's a healthcare plan design that has better benefits, up 260%. So the trends are here. The trends are coming. Let's dig in a little bit deeper and define two things to make sure we're all on the same page. We have incentive-based wellness programs based on two main concepts. One, they want to reward people or penalize people whether or not they are participating. So it's a participatory-based incentive plan design versus outcomes. And our definition of outcomes-based wellness programs is rewards or penalties based on some health factor. That could be a health risk. It could be a health behavior. It could be based on completion of some form of behavior change program. Now, participation is the catalyst that starts a lot of this. But a participatory incentive would be, did you complete the HRA? Yes, no. Well, yes, I did. It is participatory, and we get good numbers there. The bigger question is does that change behavior? Because based on what we said, behavior is driving the whole thing. It really comes down to this. Sustainable change requires more than just a little bit of money thrown at them. People have to change behaviors. And the model that we've been promoting comes from the RE-AIM framework. It's one of the many different behavior change models that's out there, but it's one that I think resonates with people. And it consists of two pieces. It consists of reach and impact. Reach is the number of people that we touch with the program. Impact is actually this is actually code for what research scientists call effect size. By definition, effect size is the difference in the means between the intervention group and a control group. In other words, it's what was the effect of this thing that you did to people. If you have a big effect, really a lot of things change. If the effect size was pretty small, not much changed. We don't use the word effect size because nobody gets it, nobody understands it, and everybody's eyes glaze over when we start talking about effect sizes. What most people understand is impact. What was the impact of the program? Well, a health risk appraisal gets really good reach generally, depending on how it's done, and I'll talk more about that. But its impact is really kind of minimal. I mean, how many of you discovered you were overweight when you bubbled in those sheets on a health risk appraisal? You already knew you were overweight before you ever started. Impact of a health risk appraisal is very small, the effect size. It doesn't change a lot of behaviors. However, impact of a campaign designed around helping you make healthy food selections both at the grocery store and at home, that has impact. It changes behavior. We'll just briefly mention that's awareness, motivation, skills, and policy. That's what's involved in getting a really good effect size. So behavior change programs are the key to this. Let me give you one example of how this can all pull together in a meaningful way for you to see where all this is going. One of our clients, a larger client, 3,300 employees, has participated in our program for a long time. We're huge believers in this reach times impact model. So that involves very effective communication and the use of good motivational tools and skills and policies and awareness. In this particular group, we had 94% participation in a group, in a company of 3,300 plus. 94% of every employee engaged. There's a reason why that engagement was so high. Then, because they're using an outcomes-based program where they actually had a change in their copay, if they participated, a lower copay, they were highly motivated to not only participate for personal reasons, but also the outcomes-based incentive. We're now publishing this data. It's actually in review as we speak, where we have systolic blood pressure down about 3.5 points. Now, these are people with elevated levels only, and this is the entire organization, not just the ones who participated in all the aspects, but the entire group. High blood pressure down 3.4%, or that's the 3.4%. Diastolic blood pressure down 7%. Glucose, for those who have elevated blood glucose, drops pretty dramatically. We have people almost reaching the non-diabetic level. Now, this is year one data based on biometric data. So what we have is a combination of really good reach and really good impact, effect size. What do you do to get people to change their behaviors? And then let's reward those items through a benefits-based plan design. In this particular case, a lower copay. Now, I'm talking about behavior change. It's the linchpin in all of this, because without it, all the incentives and all the money and all the copay changes in the world are going to be a waste unless we change behavior. So, resource number one for you today. Michael O'Donnell, the editor of American Journal of Health Promotion, did an interview with David Honeycutt a couple of years ago. That interview, by the way, is posted in this paper, Changing Behaviors. And he uses this model. This model basically says education and awareness, motivation, skills and tools, policy and environment. The percentages are the percentage of the impact of each of those components. Most wellness programs spend a lot of time doing education and awareness. Well, unfortunately, that's only 5% of the real impact of behavior change. Motivation is really good. Changes in policy and environment, even better. Skills and tools, important. So anyway, Michael breaks this out, does a fabulous job. We've already posted this at the wellsteps.com webinars link. Get it, download it, read it. Use it as your Bible as to how to make this happen. Because if we don't change behaviors as part of our outcomes, there's not much is going to happen. Okay, so before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's do a quick review. In order for us to change outcomes, lower healthcare costs, and improve employee health, we've got to focus on behavior. In order to change employee behavior, we highly recommend, and again, this is the way we do it, the REAIM framework, which is reach times impact. When we combine high reach touching all the employees with a highly effective intervention or interventions, now we've started this ball rolling. Okay, now when we talk about what's really good, what's a good design to use, what's a good plan to use, we get into this deal of a better deal. We talk about changes in premium differentials for people. Pay less each month in your premium. That's a nice reward. A better plan value would be, well, we have lower copays, a lower deductible, or maybe we have expanded benefits. So when we talk about the reward that can be used, there's a variety of things that are being thrown out there, and we're seeing everything. The little example that I showed you had a change in their copay, which they very much enjoyed. I'm going to say that every year I sit on the C. Everett Board COOP, the C. Everett COOP Health Project Board, where we identify the best wellness programs in the country. And I have the opportunity to see what everybody's doing. We get, dozens and dozens of applications plus what we do in our entire WellSteps book of business, you want to answer the question, how much money is a typical program providing as an incentive? The average across most of our book of business is about $50 a month. Now you can bundle that any way you want, and there's pros and cons, and we'll talk about that, but it's about $50 a month, either in a copay or as a premium differential or as in-kind monies that have been transferred into a better health plan design. So $50 a month. And another number that's pretty normal is about $1,100 a year, in that range. And I use $1,100 a year because that's how much it ends up being at the end of the year for some of these groups who are doing this. So $50 a month or up to $1,100 a year. I see most of them falling in that category. We'll show you why that's a good or bad idea. But when we look at this premium differential, there's the business of the reward being immediate. Every month I pay my premium, and every month I see the benefit. In fact, it should be included on my pay stub saying $25 or $50 benefit from wellness program participation. Because if it just shows up in my check that's electronically deposited and then I have $50 more than I had, I don't see it. And if I don't see it, I don't recognize it as a reward. I don't get that instant mental boost where my neurotransmitters fire because it's a pleasure. I don't get really to feel and experience the reward. So we have some companies who actually will provide a pay stub notification, or they'll even put a payroll reminder, something in their payroll to see. Now these work, they're short term, as in they show up every month, they're very visible, they're a little bit more complicated to administer. Somebody has to track on a monthly basis who does and does not qualify, and then make sure that the accounting and the benefits get put in, and it can be very complicated to do it. That's one option. Another option is a better plan value. This particular case means if you qualify this year and do the outcomes correctly, you get a better plan design. Maybe you get to have better benefits, or maybe there's a deductible that changes, or whatever the change can be. It's easier to administer, but you don't get the reward for a full year. Meaning we go a whole year and I don't really get to see what's going on yet. I don't get to feel the benefit of that incentive. Worse, at least easier than the other one, this one's a little easier to collect data on, but somebody has to collect and report this data, and it has to be accurate. You want it to be verifiable. Well, now, let's take a pause at this moment and let's ask some questions. All of you on the phone, on the webinar today, let's do a quick poll. So what I want to do is I want to launch a poll, and I know it doesn't apply to everybody, but I would like you to go ahead and respond. There should be some polling in progress. What percentage of your book of business, if that's just you as an individual, put my just 100% of me, or maybe if it's a broker and you have multiple people in this group that are doing this, go ahead and input your data on here, and I'm going to show you the results about how common these are amongst us on the phone today, just to get a feel for what's going on in the market. You know, we've got 1,000 of you working in this space right now doing this. I'm going to close this poll in about 4 seconds, so quickly vote. I'm going to go ahead and close this poll, and I'm going to show you the results. Let's see. They should be seen. Ryan, I think you're still on there. Hopefully we can all see that right now. So you're seeing the poll results. 51% of you have about 10%. Less than 10% of you, the bulk of you, have anybody in your book of business, if you're a broker, or anybody that you work with as a wellness consultant or a wellness vendor, who are doing these. So despite the data that I shared with you earlier about their growing frequency, there's still a lot of you, the majority. Now if we go down to the bottom, greater than 41%, I'm assuming that's a lot of you who have got existing programs, maybe just one employer if you're a wellness professional. So with that in mind, we can see that several of you have got some really good stuff going on, but the bulk of you are just getting started. Now, let's do another one. Now we've got that data. Let's just ask a follow-up question. If you have clients that are doing this, I want you to tell us what they're doing. Are you giving them a premium differential? Are you giving them better plan value? Or is it something other that you're doing? What are the rewards that you're giving people who are doing this? So I'm going to give about 10 more seconds here. Go ahead and vote. Tell us what you're doing, and then we'll share with the group. You can all see what everybody's doing in the market right now. 3, 2, 1. Here we go. I'll close it, and I'll share it with everybody. So now you should be able to see 84% of you are giving a premium differential, which could be done annually. It could be done monthly. Some of you are providing a better plan value, saying, you know, if you participate and you complete X, Y, and Z, you qualify for the Healthy Lifestyle Plan, which does whatever, or it includes dental, or it includes a lower deductible, or it includes preventative services at a specific, or maybe there's no out-of-network, a multiple number of ways to tweak this to work. So, to summarize, you have all reported that most of you are just getting started in this space, and those of you who are doing it, the most popular benefit is a premium differential. And again, our book of business, that's the most common one also, and that happens to be about $50 per employee per month. So with that in said, let's go ahead and jump in and talk about how to do all this and make it simple. I want to start off, first off, by addressing all of the skeptics who are on the phone today, because I am one of you, and I have lots of tough questions about it. So let's just do some criticism of these programs. First off, there's this belief that financial rewards undermine autonomy. You know what? I don't want my company telling me what I should and shouldn't eat. And in fact, I resent the fact that you're going to give me money if I do this or don't do this. I feel like it's a little Big Brother-esque, and I want to be the one who makes the decision to be healthy, not my employer. That's a fair assessment. But if you start off with a financial incentive, those can, as an extrinsic motivator, those quickly morph into internal incentives. So for example, if I start exercising regularly and having a healthy lifestyle, and I get financial rewards for it, eventually I start to notice that I have lost weight, that I look and feel better, that my wife thinks I look hot. She hasn't said that in 100 years. Those external financial rewards that you've thrown at me transfer over and to become intrinsic motivators, so that even when you pull the reward away, I'm still going to be acting I'm still going to be behaving the way I should for good health. Excessive control leads to defiance. It depends on how you do this. If you cram this down their throat, it's not going to go over well. I'll give you an example. I did get a phone call from a large manufacturer in Wisconsin saying, Dr. Aldana, we've got some problems I thought you might be able to help us out with. We have an outcomes-based wellness program. If you do not complete all of the steps within our wellness program, not only do you pay the full amount of your employee premium, health premium, but you're also going to pay the employer portion of the healthcare cost. Well, how much is that? It's $1,200 a month. So if I don't participate in your wellness program, it's going to cost me $1,200 a month. Is that correct? That's correct. Let me guess. You have 100% participation. She said, oh, absolutely. We have 100% compliance with this. I said, so why are you calling me? She says, well, nothing's changing. Blood pressures aren't changing. People aren't engaging. In fact, what it's created is a bit of a toxic environment around here. Excessive control leads to defiance. If that's how you plan to do this, then this is a valid concern. However, there are much, much less Big Brother-esque ways to do this, where they're a win-win for everybody, and you let the individuals decide. And $1,200 a month is pretty tough. Talk about beating your employees into submission. I call that hollow participation. employees who aren't ready or willing to change won't. That's true. And you want to grab people when they're ready. But every behavior change goes through the same process. You know, the trans-theoretical model, Stages of Change, tells us they go through this whole, I'm not interested, I'm not even thinking about it, to, yeah, I'm thinking, now I'm preparing, now I'm doing it, your pre-contemplative thing. Everybody goes through the same process. Financial incentives are a great way to get people started. It's like the MetaFast program. People call me and say, how can I lose all this weight? You know, I got to get started. I've heard about MetaFast, which is a very low-calorie diet. I said, you know what? If you want to try it for a little while to get a jump start, great. But if you don't change your behavior and your lifestyles, nothing's going to matter. So they use it as a jump start. Maybe financial incentives through outcomes are a great way to jump start your employees. Monetary incentives aren't sustainable. I talked about them being $50 a month. Now, we did have a lawyers group in New York City, one of our clients, who insisted that they wanted to get health risk appraisal data from their employer, so they gave them $500 to complete the health risk appraisal. We said, don't do it. This is a big mistake. No, they're really busy, and unless we throw a bunch of money at them, they won't do it. We said, well, don't do it because you're going to create an entitlement mentality here. I said, no, we're going to do it. So they did. They got really good compliance, and then they started with their next wellness campaign. And of course, you all know the very first question all the brokers had, the lawyers had was, well, how much money do we get? So the monetary incentive obviously was not sustainable, and they created an entitlement mentality. And that's where this bribery things come in. What have you done for me lately mentality? So I understand these concerns. I get it. One more, financial incentives aren't enough to change complex behaviors. I disagree. $50 a month for a spouse and maybe $50 a month for an employee is enough to get them to listen up and to pay attention and to maybe come, however begrudgingly, to the table and listen to start the conversation. It's not punitive. It's not in any way degrading. If it's done in the right spirit with the right reasons, they'll see that their colleagues are doing it, and I consider it as, again, a catalyst to get it started. So there's a couple of ways you can do this right, and there's a couple of ways you can do this wrong. Briefly, you know that HIPAA is involved with this. How to do it wrong can be a disaster, like the manufacturing plant in Wisconsin. You need to be able to qualify for this once a year. Every year I need to be able to qualify for this thing. I can see incentives amounts, 20% of the total, this is the total cost of health care, can be used as part of that incentive. It's 20% now. As most of you well know, it goes up to 30% in 2014. Most employers, when I said $50 a month, they're not even getting close to that 20%. They could raise this up to 80% and it will be irrelevant because very, very few employers are going to take advantage of this. At $50 a month right now, we're looking at less than 10% of the total annual spend is what the average is the market's using right now. So that's the amount, the quantity of money you can hand out. They have to be available to everybody, and you already know that. And you have to make available an alternate standard. Now, to make sure that you understand this very clearly, you got to communicate the alternate way to qualify. You got to let them know, look, if you can't do that, here's what you need to do. One of our clients that's doing biometric screening has an exemption form that an employee must use if they want to be exempt. I don't, you know, they gave the incentive out, the premium copay change, if they just did the screening. All you have to do is do your screening. We don't care if your blood pressure is even high or low or whatever. Just get screened. We still got several dozen exemption forms, and a doctor has to sign it. Now, I don't know the reasoning, but I would like to talk to the doctor that says, this person has approached me, and it's my medical opinion that they should not be screened. I don't know exactly how that happens, but nonetheless, it's an alternate form, and they can do it if they want, and you know, life goes on. Plus, we have to have a reasonable plan design, and reasonable plan design means you better do something to these people that actually works. Giving them a health risk appraisal ain't it. That could be a small piece of it. You've got to do some really good stuff. So one way to make sure that everything you're doing is in compliance, use the WellSteps free compliance checker. Just go to WellSteps, click on Tools, the Tools link, the Wellness Compliance. It's just like TurboTax. It's a yes/no flow chart. You go through it, you answer the questions. It will tell you if you are in compliance with the program or not. It's free. It's a fabulous tool to help you make sure you're lined up with HIPAA, GINA, and ERISA, and even ADA. Lastly, a reasonable design program, it's got to include these things. If you look at the code, if you look at the language that's in there, it's got to include these items for it to be reasonable. Is it going to result in behavior change? That's what they want to know. So here's the checklist that we've put together. At the wellsteps.com website, if you click on webinars, you'll see this webinar slide deck has been posted, and you'll also see this outcomes-based wellness checklist. This comes from us working with all of our clients and taking their common questions and answering them to put together the best programs. This is just a little checklist to help you go through this discussion internally with whatever group you're working with. To show you how it works, I want to go through each item because this is how we make these programs simple. So step one, what requirements are often used? What are the requirements that I want people to, what are the hoops I want people to jump through? The most often used ones are HRA completion, and then there's biometric data. BMI or waist to hip or body fat, blood pressure, glucose, cholesterol. These are the ones that are really solid. We see smoking on this once in a while also. You can create anything you want. We really, really like what comes out of the Preventative Services Task Force guidelines. They include BMI, and people are saying, well, BMI is such a weak measure. You know what? They use it. The CDC BRFSS uses it. The Framingham study uses it. All your checkups use it. BMI is really easy to use. It's accurate for 95% of the people. Most of us are fat. Yes, it's true. The guidelines for cholesterol and blood pressure kind of change, but the guidelines for BMI haven't changed. They're the same. They've been forever. There's just more of us who are obese. So the BMI tool, use BMI if you want. You can use a variety of things when you package together. We have one that we love to use for a variety of reasons. The recommended value that we use is blood pressure. And there's a reason why we think blood pressure is so good. Blood pressure is really, really cheap to measure. In fact, it's free. You could put a cuff or you could put a measuring stand somewhere in your building. You can have anybody you want. They can do it themselves. They have them now. They just go on your wrist and you push a button. It's crazy easy. Blood pressure is the predictor of heart disease, diabetes, and stroke. It's a huge surrogate measure of those. It's also caused by obesity, tobacco use, lack of physical activity. It's like this measure of all measures. It's a great measure of what we can do. 1/3 of the people have high blood pressure. Nearly 1/3 are borderline high pressure. It's a 5-star intervention. It's a cure for this is diet, exercise, and tobacco cessation, something we all want to promote. And the great thing about blood pressure, it's what you have. You have hypertension. It's not that you have blood pressure, everybody has it. You have an elevated level. Versus BMI, we say, well, you have obesity. That's code talk for you're fat. Nobody wants to hear that, especially from their employer or anybody else. So blood pressure is essentially free. It's extremely easy to take. It's extremely easy to measure. And it provides one of those variables that can be thrown into the mix. What do you want to measure as the outcome? What do you want to judge people against? This is a decision that every company has to make for themselves. What do we want to include? Tobacco, no tobacco, exercise, healthy behaviors, healthy eating. Do we want to look at blood glucose and blood pressure? How about, we don't really care what all your values are. We just want you to engage in our behavior change programs. Your blood pressure and your cholesterol and your diet, they're irrelevant if you're engaging in healthy behaviors. We could go and use our mantra here, it's about behavior change. So there's a variety of ways to do it. Notice what's really not a big one on the list is the health risk appraisal. Health risk appraisal is great for data collection and monitoring, but it's not a behavior change tool. All right, benefit strategy. You want the reward to be immediate because we respond to immediate rewards. That means some kind of monthly, some kind of immediate reward. If you delay the reward, it doesn't have the same effect. Immediate penalty, immediate rewards. You want it to happen with like on a month-to-month basis or at the conclusion of each program or each campaign. It has to be something short-term. If it's out a year, people are so busy. This day and age, most people have the attention span of a gnat. They're texting and calling and phoning and Facebook and it's now. It's the same thing is true for rewards. So it's got to be something immediate. It could be benefits-based. But something like a copay or a deductible, yeah, it's good and it's valuable, but it's a little bit long-term. You really want to have something that hits them pretty quick. So premium differential versus a better insurance plan value, you can kind of see the pros and cons of those. Benefit plan recommendation, a better plan value. We've talked about a better coverage or inclusion of better services or eliminating out of network, or you can change the plan design. You can provide campaigns to give employees the tools and skills they need to change behaviors, and you can reward completion of campaigns. We've already mentioned that. I favor this one because it's getting at the heart of this, and that is behavior change. That's what we want. Now, when we make plan recommendations, one of the things that we're worried about is who's going to collect and manage the data. Who's going to do this? Here's a typical company. They're spread out at 6 different physical locations. They're all over the map, or all over the country, or wherever they are. Say a school district with hundreds of locations. Who's going to do all this work? Who's going to gather this? We use, again, our solution, a WellSteps guide that has direct link with an on-site coordinator at every location, which helps us help the employees report or do what they're doing. We'll get to this, but there has to be a separation between the data and the employer. You need a third party, somebody who's going to do this, because you can't have Benefits Betty down in payroll going through everybody's cholesterol measures. You can't have Benefits Betty down in payroll going through everybody's BMI measures. That's a violation. You're going to get in big trouble if you do that. It's got to be an independent party. We usually have employees go do biometric screening or see their physician. The physician or the screeners then report directly to us so we can verify that it was completed, and then we provide the reports back. So there's a layer of security and confidentiality between them. And that gets to this business of data integration. How do we integrate this with our health risk appraisal data, or how do we use it for planning, how to use it reporting? There has to be a way to centralize this and pull it all together. That's tough to do, but it's important to make the program work. How will they know what to change? How will an employee decide? Well, we can make a sweeping recommendation that everybody have normal blood pressure or they don't qualify. Or a recommendation that everybody has normal body weight or healthy body weight. That's an option, but there is a portion of your population that's not hypertensive. In fact, it's approximately 50 to 70%, depending on the way you look at it. They don't have the health risk, they've already got it, or their normal weight. What can we do to help everybody change their behaviors or do something germane to their own status? Something that's correct for me, given my own health risks and my own health behaviors. One way we've solved this problem is everybody takes the health risk appraisal and they get individualized feedback. When they do it at WellSteps, we give them a little report card, A, B, C, whatever, for fruits, vegetables, seatbelts, whatever it is. And they can look at their own report card and decide what they like, what they don't like. They can go through their different risks and they can learn more about the different risks that they have. But then we go one step further. We have a tool called My Goal, where they just have to pick a goal, something that they want to work on for themselves. It's not company mandated. It's not part of their outcomes. They just pick their own thing that they want to work on. There's a simple little tool to help them put it together, and then it's automatically stored in a database. We know who is doing it and who isn't. We even know who completes it and who doesn't. And we can even verify some of that. So how do you know who gets credit for doing this? How will you know if they've completed their biometric screening? Health risk appraisal is pretty easy. We have a tool called Rewards. Here's the activity. I attended a lunch and learn, or I submitted this. Boom, I attended the lunch and learn. Click, they just click. And we can even verify this if we want. We can do it with biometric screening, and it's there. And the outcome is a CSV file or an Excel file showing here's all the employees who have qualified and those who have not. And it's done automatic. In fact, it's live. Anybody can, if they want, can go ahead and see who's already completed and who hasn't. So it simplifies this. One of our sales guys, Whitney Richards, and I were in Arizona recently. Went to one of the larger employers in town. They have a really, really good, sophisticated outcomes tracking program. Their full-time wellness person spends his entire time, 40 hours a week, keeping track of who has and hasn't done it. I joked with him. I said, you've become an accountant. You thought you were a wellness person. You're just an accountant. You're just sitting back, collecting forms, verifying, doing all the things that you can do, and you're really not doing what you probably were trained to do. Because this thing had become so big that their incentive program became their wellness program. They missed the whole boat. So how will employees know when they've completed the requirements? We have a great little tool. It's automatically uploaded. Their verification is there, and they see this. Boom, your PHA is done. Boom, your biometrics done. You're done. Well, did you get my form? Did I get credit for it? How do you know it's there? Because, man, when open enrollment comes around, people are coming out of the woodwork. If you're not really organized with it, it can be a bit overwhelming on how they do that. Maintaining and how to verify and maintain privacy, that's where the WellSteps Guide comes in and does such a really good job of keeping some walls between the employer and the data. And somebody, your screener, third-party vendor, an outside wellness person, somebody has to be able to do this. Maybe you work with your broker to do this. Lastly, how do you recommend age and gender risk-appropriate screenings? This is one of the things we encourage employers to do, is encourage their employees to do their regularly scheduled preventative screenings. We have a tool called the Screening Reminder. It's great. When they register, we know their date of birth and their gender. We also have their mobile phone and their email address. So when you turn 50, you're going to get an email saying, happy birthday, way to go, the big 5-0. Oh, by the way, you really want to have a long, healthy, high-quality life. It's time to schedule your colonoscopy. It's a reminder. That changes outcomes because the reminders are available to help people do early cancer screenings and detections. That has a big impact on the financial bottom line. Then the reporting requirements, all of ours, again, this is how we do it, ends up with a CSV file, a comma delimited file that can be sent to the carrier, can be sent to the broker, can be sent to the benefits office that has all the people who've qualified and what they've done, and zip, they upload it. So it has to be really organized to make it simple. Well, now, I know we got time for some questions, and we're at that time right now. One quick announcement before we go. On May the 3rd, we're going to talk about the only realistic solution to our health. Now this, I use the word culture, but people's eyes glaze over when I say culture. This is it. This is how 12 different companies have created healthy cultures at work, and behaviors change because the culture supports it. We're going to go through how it happens and why it's the only solution to this. Despite all our efforts, despite all our hard work, unless we're able to create healthy cultures, unless we make it work, it's the only solution to this long problem. That'll be May 3rd. It's free registration. It should be loaded there now at wellsteps.com. You can go there and register anytime you want. And Ryan, I'm guessing we might have some complaints, and I probably did a good job of ticking half the people off today.
I wouldn't say half, maybe a couple only. Well, and Troy, Dr. Adams, he lost his voice, but he didn't lose his ability to type. He's been busy answering questions here on the back end as well. We do have someone who's a witness of the wellness accountant. He says he's offended. He does way more than 40 hours a week as a wellness accountant. So we have a few people that are there have felt that pain. So I think one question that really gets at the core of whether this should be the best option or a viable option for a company. Rex asked basically on the long-term sustainability of these types of programs. Some people have a concern that they would need to continue to increase the value of the benefit each year to maintain the same level of participation, and eventually they're going to max out at that 30% cap. So is it a viable long-term strategy, and how can it be made a viable long-term strategy to use an outcomes-based program?
If you're just chasing participation by gradually increasing the amount of the incentive, then it is a game that's going to end. It's not going to end well, because all the money in the world, you're not going to keep up with that demand. There is some truth to the criticism that the money itself does not translate into long-term behavior change, and it's true. What needs to happen is, look, here's a benefits plan change, here's a reward, it's small, it's there, it's a token, it's very small. I would never go more than $50 a month. I don't care who the group is, ever. I would never exceed that. What I would do is I would hit the employees really hard with information on the benefits that they get when they go down this new road. Do you feel better? Are you sleeping better? And there's ways to do that. A lot of employers will have a hallway in the building where they have the Wellness Wall of Fame. These are people who have decided to make changes in their lives, and these are posters that they hang up where the individual has a nice picture and they tell their story. This is how my life is better. This is how my life has changed. This is what my family has experienced as I've gone through this. These are the medications I'm no longer taking. This is the amount of weight that I've lost. This is how my life is better. Your money is great, but the value I get from having a new transformed life exceeds that $50 a month far and beyond. So it diminishes the financial importance, it maximizes the intrinsic values, and even if the money disappeared today, they would persist with their healthy behaviors because they now have internalized it. That's where you have to go. And you have to remind them about what those benefits are, and you have to continue to motivate them and show them how their lives are better.
Great, thank you. One question is, so if we have an outcomes-based program, how do we reach those who maybe are not on our health plan, our employees who are not enrolled in our health plan?
Then you have to come up with an incentive outside of your benefits plan. If your employees are non-benefited, I know one benefit that's exceptionally popular with people, one reward, and that's a paid day off or a half a day payoff. Some type of time off work is usually really good. When we do our campaigns, do a random drawing for some simple incentives. They're short term. Remember, every few weeks there are people who are going to get hit with an incentive. They love that. It could be a gift card. It could be a gift card for Amazon.com. We let the companies kind of decide in many cases what they want to do. Sometimes it's tickets to the Met. Sometimes it's tickets to the big game. Sometimes it's a gift card to the sporting goods store. It's a way to motivate people outside of the benefits plan. They have a great impact. They're just not benefits based.
Okay, great. We have questions just coming in too fast now that we're done here. Anyway, one question is about involving spouses on in this program. Is there a best approach to involve a spouse of an employee in a wellness program, especially tying them into this outcomes-based approach?
The word spouse is used because it applies to most people. But what we're really getting at is a significant other in your employee's life. Maybe it's their mother. Maybe it's their best friend. Maybe it's a spouse. Maybe it's a domestic partner. It's someone with whom they share their life. and they share their behaviors and they share the same benefits. So I know this is going to go against a lot of people's thinking, but if the goal is to change people's behavior, we really want to get at their social support systems. That might be a spouse, might be somebody else. The way we do it is our really short, simple health risk appraisal, PHA, has one final question. We say something to the effect that when you have help from others, it's a lot easier to be successful. Is there someone in your life that you would like to participate with in this effort? And they indicate the name of the person, give us an email address, a physical address. They are invited to participate in exactly the same campaigns at the same time. Now, they're not going to qualify for the biometric screening or maybe even help. They can do the health risk appraisal. We just code them separately. We're working on a paper right now where we're looking at changes in health behaviors from the significant others, not the employees, the significant others. Now, in most cases, the significant other is part of their benefits plan, so it's critical to get them included because you're paying for them. But in terms of behavior change, that little social network of one person who's here to help me is a really important piece to the behavior change puzzle.
Great, thank you. One question that's come up several times in various forms is, you know, with the option to the requirement to provide a reasonable alternative, and now the case where that needs to be provided to anyone who requests it, they feel like these outcomes-based programs might be losing, you know, their teeth a little bit, their ability to affect change that the reasonable alternative, you know, might reduce the effectiveness of these programs. Do you have any comments about that and how to comply with those laws and still make the outcomes-based program effective?
They say reasonable alternative. I'm going to backtrack my discussion earlier about this large school district who has been doing this. Of the 3,300 employees, I'll bet we processed maybe a dozen, maybe a few more than a dozen exemptions. And what that alternative required the employee to do was you got to go see your physician. You got to make an appointment. You got to go see your doctor. You have to convince that doctor that you don't want to do your biometric screening, which any doctor in his right mind is going to go, what? Why did you want to do this? Yes, it's an alternative standard. No, it's not very easy to get. In that particular case, it's an alternative, correct, but there are some steps that have to happen for the person to get that alternative. And if they're going to push that hard, I'm going to make an appointment, go see my doctor, have him fill out a form that's saying biometric screening is a waste of time, and give it to me, then by darn, the person's probably earned their exemption. And by the way, they're probably not going to ever do your wellness program. But there are some small little hoops that they have to do it. If the exemption is fax us a piece of paper saying I want out, well, everybody might, it's probably not going to be worth it. The number of exemptions is directly proportional to how well you communicate this program. If this is a top-down, big brother approach to controlling healthcare expenses, everybody in the world is going to exempt out. But if this is for you, by you, with a wellness committee, we're never going to see your data. You're part of this family. You're an important part of this company. We want you here for a long time. We love you. We care about you. Here's some things we want to do. They'll go, and they'll do it.
Okay, great. We're at an hour here, Steve, and we do have plenty of questions, but I think we might be out of time to answer those. We will have the slides and the recording up within the next few hours on the website, next couple of hours.
I'm going to make the last plug. All the slides will be posted at the website. The video will be posted, and the last 5 years of my life has been spent researching and studying and investigating why it is there is only one solution to this problem, and we're going to talk about it on May 3rd. So thank you, everyone. Troy, I hope you feel better.